Welcome back to another episode of Fully Loaded. I am Chef Kirk. Today we're going to be doing some open flame grilling on our Cowboy fire pit, so stay tuned. Have you ever wondered how to get the most out of your pit boss? Welcome to Fully Loaded, where I teach you how to unlock the full potential of your pit boss grill. Learn new recipes and pick up strategies to cook full meals. Load those grills to the max and unleash flavor like never before with expert tips and tricks. Pit Boss Fully Loaded is your ultimate grilling guide. Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Fully Loaded. Today I'm going to show you how to break down a full strip loin. We're going to be cutting steaks, and I'm going to show you where to stop cutting steaks, because down here on this side there is a nerve ending, or there's some gristle down here in the end where it really doesn't make for the best texture of a steak. And then we're going to move right into marinating some seasonal vegetable skewers that we're going to be grilling right over lump charcoal in our Cowboy fire pit. So first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to open this thing up and get it dry, and then we're going to start cutting steaks, and I'll show you exactly where we're going to stop cutting steaks. Then we're going to fab this nerve ending to where you could use the byproduct for things like fajitas or tacos or whatever you would like to use it for. This part can be a little bit messy, so I always try to open the package up on the top and try to pull the package out from underneath the loin so we're not dripping blood everywhere. Keep in mind, the colder your loin is, the easier it's going to be to cut, and it will be less resistance. So the first thing I'm going to do is just try to go through, and you notice little connective tissue, excess amounts of fat. We're just going to lightly trim this off. You really don't have to worry about trimming too much of it off, because a lot of this stuff will melt during the cooking process. Just go right along the bottom. Any silver skin you notice, excess fat, trim that right away. Now that we got the bottom nice and cleaned up, on the back side of every strip loin, you're going to notice that there is a big thick piece of grizzle that's back here. This doesn't chew very well. You're going to notice sometimes when you buy steaks, this is on there, and this can easily be trimmed off, but this is normally the first thing that I would trim off, and then we're going to take most of the fat cap off, but we're going to leave a little bit of fat on. Fat is flavor. We'll start down here. Just going to trim about 1.5 inches in all the way down. And once you make this initial cut, you're going to notice where you might want to come back and take more off. As you can see, this is what we're trying to remove, this big thick piece of silver skin that's in there that does not chew well. Now that we're at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and flip this around so it's a little bit easier for me to work with. There is what's known as a chain here on the back side of the loin. Sometimes people leave it on. You can take it off if you like. We're gonna leave it on today, and then as we cut steaks, I'll show you exactly what it is. So this is your nerve ending, where you can see where there's the texture of the steak is not the same. This connective tissue that comes through here. And so we're gonna start on this side, and we're just going to block the end up so we can have nice evenly cut steaks. It's about what you want your loin to look like on the end. Now we're just going to be cutting about 1.5 inch steaks. With a loin this size, you're probably going to be looking at about a 14 to a 16 ounce steak. So right at about 1 inch. Let the knife do the cutting. I'll let we cut that steak. Now what we're going to want to do with each steak as we go, I'm just going to cut off the excess fat. If you leave this fat on, as it melts and it drips onto your fire, it could lead to fires. And so I try to leave a minimal amount of fat on each steak. That's about what we're looking for, right about like that. So steak number one, we're gonna roll right on through with the rest of them. So here's the example that I was trying to make. Once you make it further down on the loin, you're gonna notice how there's a big piece of grizzle that comes through here that just doesn't chew very well. This is normally where I will stop cutting steaks. You can cut the rest of this into steaks if you'd like. I normally like to clean the fat off of it, and we're gonna take all the sinew out of it, and we're gonna chop it up for another use. And then now that I found this piece of sinew that runs through here, I'm just gonna carve that right on out of there. Normally when you make your initial cut, you can kind of see where this vein is. So I'll just go right underneath it and carve that right on out. In most cases, I like making tacos or fajitas with it. You can dice it larger and make skewers with it. You can also use it for stew meat, soups, anything along those lines that would call for a diced beef. And here you have it. I've got full byproduct. You're looking probably somewhere around 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds. Just plenty for a small family for a full meal. So we're gonna set this off to the side. And bring our steaks back out. I'm just gonna lightly rub them with a little bit of avocado oil and season with salt and pepper, and we're gonna let that sit. Then we're gonna move into our vegetable skewers, give that a light marinade, and then we're gonna move right in and starting our fire. So as you can see, we yielded 11 steaks and about 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of byproduct. And so as you can see, you're saving by fabbing out your own strip loins. So as once practiced, keep one hand clean, using your oil and seasonings, and leave your one hand glove so you can handle your product. We don't need a whole lot of oil. This is more or less just like a binder, so your salt and pepper will stick to your steaks. Not a whole lot. There we go. Salt and pepper, kosher salt. Pepper. It's a nice even coat. Flip and repeat. A little bit of avocado oil again, just a little bit over the top. And salt. Pepper. There you have it. Now we're just gonna set these in the fridge till we're ready to grill them so they stay nice and cold. It is favored for some to leave their steaks out at room temperature before they grill them. This is more or less of a preference thing. If it's something that you'd rather do, by all means go ahead and let them sit to room temperature. I like to cook them from ice cold so you get a nice char and it still yields a nice medium rare inside. All right, now we're gonna move into our vegetable skewers. A couple of things that I like to mention when you're making vegetable skewers: the vegetables that you choose to put on your skewer should be of like texture. So for example, you're gonna wanna avoid putting a carrot on a skewer with a cherry tomato. It just doesn't work that way. So I made separate skewers, one full of mushrooms. Everyone loves mushrooms with their steak. And then I have summer squash with peppers and onions. Normally, you would like to salt, pepper, season, or rub your skewers with whatever like seasoning you like. One thing that really works for me is using a vinaigrette type salad dressing. And so you can use a champagne dressing, Italian dressing, balsamic, whatever you would like to use that evening to help pair with your center of plate. Today we've chosen just a regular basic Italian dressing. We're gonna dress that over the top with just a little bit of GSP and some chopped herbs. Our chopped herbs is an equal parts mixture of chopped oregano, fresh picked thyme, and chopped parsley. And so without further ado, all we're gonna do is just put a little bit of salad dressing on each of the skewers and allow it to sit for about 15-20 minutes. Then we're gonna light our fire and we should be ready to move right into the next steps. You don't have to worry about drowning the skewers. You just kind of want to coat them, move them around a little bit, allow them to sit. You can always add more. You can't take it away. All right. We're gonna hit it with a little bit of GSP. A little bit of some chopped herbs. There you have it, guys. Marinated vegetable skewers ready for the grill. Now it's time to move on to building our fire in our Cowboy fire pit. All right, now we get to move on to lighting our fire pit. You have multiple different fuels that you can use, fuel choice. Depending on the evening that you're trying to have, the Cowboy fire pit is really great for entertaining guests. So if you decide to use raw wood, you can start your fire and let it burn for a few hours to burn it down to your ambers in which you would want to cook over. In this particular instance, we're going to use a lump charcoal. You also have the option of using briquettes. I've used all three. Between briquettes and lump charcoal, you're going to get a similar results with cooking. It's more or less of a preference of your own. So today we're going to be using lump charcoal, and we're going to be using a lighter fluid to get our fire started. This is going to speed up the process as far as like our ambers being ready to cook. And so after we light our fire, you're looking at about maybe a 15 to 20 minute time period for the fuel to burn off and to develop the ambers they're going to want to cook over. All right, now we're just gonna get our bag opened up. We're probably gonna use most of this bag, and let's get started. Now that we're at this stage, you're really just going to want to fill your fire pot to where it's almost up to the brim. Make sure that your charcoal is evenly spread out. This is going to allow you to have a more even cooking surface. We're just going to add a little bit of fire starter to this. We're going to allow it to sit just for a few minutes before we light it. As far as like fuel to light your charcoal, yes, there's many different fuels you can use to light your charcoal. We're using a charcoal lighter. When you let it sit on your charcoal, when you go to light it, it's not gonna go. Some people like to play with gasoline. Don't be one of those people. Normally what I look for before I light my charcoal is that you don't want it to appear wet anymore. So after you put the lighter fluid on there, kind of let it sit. Once it doesn't have a sheen to it, that's normally when I move in with the fire. Let that go. Now that our fire is ready, you can have a look and you can see that we have most of the charcoal has already been lit and it's white. You can see a little bit of ash on there. There's no open fire. And so what we're gonna do is that we're gonna place our steaks around the outside and we're gonna play a little bit of ring around the rosy as we cook them. One thing that we're gonna wanna avoid is any kind of flare-ups. We will be basting and there might be a little bit of this action, but look how easy it is to just take your steaks away from the heat if in fact you do have a flare-up. It does happen. Now that we started the process and can kind of gauge that we're not going to have any kind of flare-ups, I would, for one, would like to get a little bit closer to the heat, and so I'm just going to drop it down one more notch. Nice and slow and low. So in this particular instance, as the heat passes up to the steak, it's going to be searing it, not only just making grill marks. And so once we flip, I'll be able to show you exactly what we're looking for on each side. Never gonna forget the first time that I cooked over charcoal once. We were cooking hamburgers and the grate was way too close to the fire. And you know, everything started out well and it smelled great. You go back a couple of minutes later and everything's on fire, and needless to say we had to start over. Alright, so now as you can see, now that the fat is starting to render and it's dripping on our coals, you're gonna start to notice that you will have somewhat of a fire in there, but it's not going to be overwhelming. You don't want the fire to be above your grate. If you ever notice it comes above the grate, just simply move your steaks away from the heat, allow your fire to burn down, and then come right back to it. When I'm grilling, I always like to baste my steaks as I go. You can use different types of fat. I, for one, like to use whole butter. You can use oils like avocado oil, olive oil, things of that such to baste your steaks. But you don't need a whole lot. It's just a little bit goes a long way. Fat just helps your temperature transfer into your protein at a faster rate. Again, not a whole lot. You just kind of want to give it a nice little even coat over the top. As you can see, we're cooking at a nice even rate. If you do encounter a flare up, we're just going to kind of try and make an example as to what you would do if something like that were to happen. Essentially what happens is it's typically a grease fire is what is the culprit. And so all I'm going to do is just add some of this fat and just add it to the outside of the fire, just kind of show you what a flare-up could be. As you notice, if the fire comes up and it's really starting to kiss your steak, you kind of want to avoid that. You can just kind of move it off to the side, and you can either go on either direction when this is happening. So don't be scared to play with fire. You won't wet the bed. Oh my goodness, this is going to be so delicious. One thing you will notice is that your steaks are going to color at different rates, and so you just want to rotate your steaks around the fire to ensure that they are coloring evenly. So don't be scared to move it around a little bit. Again, now that we flipped, we're going to baste with more butter. A little bit goes a long way. How's that? Some beautiful steaks. Now that you can notice we get a nice sear on our steaks, nothing too crazy, what we're gonna wanna start doing is start temping our steaks. When you're cooking with a high heat from below, you're gonna wanna, if we're shooting for a medium rare steak, that's about 130 degrees. I'm gonna be pulling these away from the heat about 115, 118 degrees and allowing the rest to carry over cook. And so I'm just gonna go around and randomly check. About 104. Like we got one ready to come off. I've got number 2. Number 3. Number 2, we can go a little longer. Ready? Number 9, just a little bit further. Now that our steaks are getting really close to being done, I'm going to pull these and let them rest and we can fire up our veg skewers. Alright, now we're going to fire off our vegetable skewers. Keep in mind that vinaigrette does contain oil, so be wary of how and when you place it to avoid flare-ups. We are all done. Notice that I'm pulling these steaks off in separate pans. Anytime you're pulling steak and you're allowing the rest, you're really going to want not to stack them because this is just going to hold the heat and it's going to cook further. We're not looking to do that. Alrighty, as you can see, we got a beautiful color on our vegetable skewers. I think it's time to take these off. Let them rest a little bit. Keep in mind, vegetables are the same as your protein. You want to take them off slightly undercooked and allow the carryover cooking to finish cooking them through. All right, it's time to go plate. The moment we've all been waiting for. We got all our steaks nice and rested. Let's go ahead and cut this one in half and kind of see how we did. Look at this, guys. Beautifully cooked right over lump charcoal. Nothing too fast, nothing too dangerous. Anyone can do this. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're just going to assemble us a little picnic platter so everybody can kind of help themselves. It's one of my favorite things to do. Took me a long time to figure it out though. Now when it comes to presentation, serving in a good old aluminum pan is always a go-to, and hey, it's totally fine. But man, I really like it when I have company and they see something like this coming together. It just gets them that much more excited. And again, what makes them happy makes me happy as well. Let's put that in there like so. There you have it, folks. Another fully loaded in the books. A little bit of fresh chopped herbs. Smooth it over. You can't go wrong with a little bit of melted butter either. Got that. One more jingle, ring the dinner bell, folks. Let's go. And there you have it, folks. Another fully loaded on the Cowboy Fire Pit New York steaks, veggie kebabs. Make sure you comment below and let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes. See you next time.